Charlie Brooker and you're watching Screenwipe, a programme all about television.
Not sure if you've noticed, but these days men in adverts are regularly treated worse than dogs. Oh, chuck him in the bin, he's just a man. Now, you could get all indignant and say this is man-hating sexism, but the fact of the matter is that all men in adverts these days deserve it, because all men in adverts these days are swaggering blokey cocks. Here's the worst offenders.
At number 10, a smug bell end with a brain full of women and mortgages.
I think mortgages can be simplified.
Take your f***ing hands out of your pockets when you're talking to me.
I think they should be flexible.
I think mortgages should have holes you can put your knob in.
In fact, I think only the best bits.
Cockend.
At number 9, Sudafed, starring a cock so annoying the moment you see him you want to say...
Yuck. This is the actual size of your nasal passages.
No, this is, you f***ing idiot. They've locked him in there just because he's such a arse.
At number 8, oh, love a duck, it's Ray Winston, patronising your face off on behalf of Kellogg's.
When it comes to food, there's a bit of a nanny culture thing going on.
Apples and pears.
Well, don't look at me, I'm not going to tell you what to do.
No, I'm just going to heavily imply it.
At 7, a cocky, preening spokesman for Britain.
The Eiffel Tower.
Blackpool Tower.
Jules Verne, Jean-Paul Sartre, Baudelaire.
Shut the f*** up.
Meet number 6, a self-satisfied f***wipe strutting his way round Marshmallow Town.
Just a blade of grass.
Hello. Yeah, I'm just stepping outside of a van, yeah, you f***ing idiot.
On TV, the pictures you're seeing often carry more weight than the words you're hearing.
But don't take my word for it, here's a scientist proving the point with a pie chart.
Since pictures are so important, plenty of time is spent making them as impressive as possible. Here, for example, I'm talking to you on raw, ungraded video, which is super sharp, but because it's associated with live TV and quiz shows and the like, feels inherently sort of cheap. Whereas now I'm talking to you from behind a fancy filter and a 25 frames per second film effect, which means the whole thing looks bloody luxurious.
Actually, luxurious is a word you can apply to a lot of modern TV, because the pictures we see today are more polished and tricksy than ever before, almost as glamorous as Hollywood. It's an unreal, televised dreamscape.
Of course, warped on-screen reality isn't exactly anything new.
TV's always shown us things that weren't really there. In the early days, to do this, you had to create a physical prop, like Supercar here, which was super. Go, you lovely supercar, go! Spin forward a few decades and basic video trickery starts to creep in, as seen here in rib-tickling supernatural pantomime Rent-A-Ghost, which made heavy use of basic stop-start editing techniques. A few years later, computers started poking their nose in, enabling vision mixers to muck around with the shape and position of the image to their heart's content.
Of course, when any new technique appears, people tend to go to town using it, which is why the 80s was such a blizzard of spinning screens and wacky warping effects.
We're going to send you up the pole and round the bend now as we bounce your eyeballs all over your living room with the aid of this little box of tricks here, a computerized doodah that sends your picture potty. And here we go. For instance, if you twist the knob round here like that, you can go that way in any direction, at any speed, or the opposite direction like that.
It looks cheesy to us now, but at the time, effects like these made viewers' minds pop like cherry tomatoes on an overheated grill pan. Actually, at the time, the technology didn't quite match up to the program makers' ambitions, and they ended up having to simulate the way futuristic effects might look using old-fashioned means.
The famous Hitchhiker's Guide animations, for instance, looked like super complex computer animations, but were actually lovingly crafted by hand. While wisecracking postmodern chat show icon Max Headroom was really just actor Matt Frewer beneath a heavy layer of latex. In 1986, groundbreaking kids show Nightmare used a combination of blue screen trickery and CGI to create a deadly interactive world in which children were burnt alive.
Nasty.
6 years later, sci-fi epic Babylon 5 was the first show wholly reliant on CGI to create a universe of intergalactic intrigue in which humans converse with boring aliens with shit foreheads. CGI really took off in 1999 with the eye-popping Walking with Dinosaurs, which was truly mind-mangling in its day, but now looks almost commonplace because the schedules are jam-packed with virtual dinosaurs, as you'll see in a moment.
28 years ago, Doctor Who was king. Tom Baker was twice as popular as Jesus Christ, and just about the only people who didn't tune in were demented clock fans, infuriated by his constant meddling with time.
You bastard.
Naturally, ITV regarded Doctor Who with envious eyes, and slowly and surely they drew their plans against him. The result was Sapphire and Steel, a wildly baffling work of metaphysical oddery, which made about as much sense as this.
Did you see my face? Did you see my face? Did you see my face?
Didn't catch on. Now in 2007, with Doctor Who riding high once again, ITV have come up with a more convincing rival. Primeval is unashamed Saturday night populist drama for the masses, and it features something for all the family. There's dinosaurs for the kids, a couple of beefy hunks for mum, a barely legal girl for dad, and the occasional shot of a washing machine for your weird cousin who f***s washing machines. The story revolves around a go-getting bunch of scientists who've discovered a series of mysterious rifts in time which keep popping open, allowing prehistoric monsters into the present day. They're a bit like gatecrashers crawling through a hole in the wall at Glastonbury. Everyone in the team has a clearly defined role. There's Violet Berlin lookalike Abby, a sort of Powerpuff Girl version of Zoe Ball, whose job is to connect with the beasties on an emotional level, look a bit saucy, and lust after the boring hunk one. I don't like the boring hunk one, partly because he's a hunk and therefore the enemy, but mainly because his job seems to consist of being knocked unconscious every few minutes. Anyway, he's clearly only doing it to mess with the pretty one's head and thereby win her affections, and it bloody works, the sly little prick.
And I'll have coffee at your place later and stay for breakfast in the morning.
Yeah, you bugger. The next gang member is Connor, who's the designated wacky one. He's supposed to be an archetypal nerd, although since the actor who plays him is clearly a bit too handsome for this, they've achieved the effect instead by giving him slightly greasy hair and a laptop obsession, and saddling him with some absurdly unrealistic fictional nerdy mates.
Lost it.
Totally. That's the saddest thing I've seen since Matrix Revolutions.
Finally, there's Professor Nick Cutter, the explainy one, whose job is to go on and on about the anomaly. Thank you. His job is to explain those every few minutes.
The anomaly has a fixed point of origin.
Yes, all right.
The anomalies may be intermittent, and they fade from time to time, but they never completely disappear.
Yeah, thanks.
The anomalies are conclusive proof that the past exists. Thank you, Professor.
And when he's not doing that, he lets off steam by shouting, Helen!
Helen! Helen! Helen! Helen!
Where are you, Helen? Helen's his dead wife, except she's not actually dead, she's just living in prehistoric times because she passed through one of the anomalies. Can't we just call it a f***ing time hole? The show is resolutely action-packed. Every episode features furious, incoherent beasts rampaging across contemporary Britain. It's also often genuinely scary. There's an almost perverse emphasis on cosy domestic normality getting smashed to bits, something Doctor Who also does, but rarely to the same extent. Sometimes it's so scary even the cameraman wets himself. And even if you're not scared, you can't help but admire the special effects, which I think are some of the best I've ever seen in a British TV show. There's quite a cute love triangle going on as well. Wacky one's in love with the pretty one, who of course is in love with the hunky one, who's in love with lying around unconscious. This cutesy romance is precisely the sort of thing that would usually strike me as trite and rubbish, but here it's just kind of heartwarming. I don't know what's the matter with me, maybe I've just gone mad. It's not the best show ever made, there's a fair few clunky lines, and sometimes the camera work makes it look as though the whole thing's taking place on a gigantic merry-go-round. Nevertheless, Primeval's far better than I thought it would be. It's certainly far superior to Torchwood, for instance. It's just nice to see. I'm sorry if that's a bland opinion. F*** you.